afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a City Planning Commission review session. Today is Monday, June 5th, 2017, and a quorum is present. The first item on the agenda is the National Black Theater Project, which involves proposed zoning map and zoning text amendments and special permit to facilitate redevelopment of the theater and affordable housing. Our lead project manager is Edwin Marshall, who will present.
Thank you, Jackie. Good afternoon, commissioners. The applicant, the National Black Theater, is seeking to develop a new mixed-income building that will also have space, a new space for their theater, the National Black Theater. The project site is located at 2031 to 2033 Fifth Avenue within East Harlem, Manhattan Community District 11. This image shows the front door, the entrance to the National Black Theater, which is located on Fifth Avenue, the address that I mentioned in my opening remarks, 2031 to 2033 Fifth Avenue. Just a little bit about the National Black Theater. This is a Harlem icon, a Harlem legacy, a Harlem institution. The National Black Theater was founded in 1968 by Dr. Barbara Ann Tier, who has operated this theater in Harlem for more than 50 years. The National Black Theater is one of the oldest black theaters, black-owned theaters in the United States, and it is the oldest black-owned theater in Harlem. What makes the National Black Theater extraordinary, in addition to its performing arts mission, is that it's one of the first entities that had mixed-use development that generated revenue over and above its performing arts mission. They had retail space, and I'll talk about that a little in my presentation a little later, that enabled them to generate revenue to make their project more supporting and self-sustaining. The National Black Theater has held over 300 theater productions, which has toured the United States, the Caribbean, Asia, and Europe. So this is truly a Harlem institution, a wonderful Harlem institution. The National Black Theater is located on the east side of Fifth Avenue between East 125th Street and East 126th Street. This is a National Black Theater located right here. It comprises two buildings. The performance venue is located right here. It has a little bit more than 27,000 square feet. And then there's the retail building, which is 2 stories, which has a little bit more than 36,000 square feet. In total, the National Black Theater campus has 63,000 square feet of floor area, and it sits on about 16,000 square feet of lot area. Just to note that Fifth Avenue, the street upon which the National Black Theater fronts, is the boundary between East Harlem, Manhattan Community District 11, and Central Harlem, Manhattan Community District 10. The eastern portion of the block is anchored by the Harlem Children's Zone, which is run by Jeffrey Canada. And also on 126th Street, you have residential buildings that are about 3 stories tall, and you have a mix of a local retail along the East 125th Street frontage as well. Here's another image that gives you a different perspective on the National Black Theater site. Again, we're looking south on Fifth Avenue. This is the National Black Theater campus here. This is 126th Street, and this is 125th Street. And you can see the Harlem Children's Zone located right here, as well as what's happening on the south side of East 125th Street. These images show the existing built condition. This is what you see standing at the intersection of 125th, looking north on Fifth Avenue. This is the facade of the National Black Theater. This is what you see along Fifth Avenue, and this is what you see at 126th Street, looking south along Fifth Avenue. Sort of taking a step back and looking at the surrounding neighborhood, the National Black Theater is outlined in red, and there are a number of buildings that are of varying heights. You can see 55 West 125th Street. This building is about 163 feet tall. You may recall that this was the building that President Clinton, former President Clinton, had his foundation, his offices here after he left office. And you have a mix of local and destination retail of varying types and configurations along East 125th Street. Moving west, this is Harlem Center. This is Marshall's, which anchors the base and a commercial office building on top of that. This is the Harlem State Office Building, also known as the Adam Clayton Powell Jr. State Office Building. This building rises to a height of 250 feet and has about 20 stories. And then heading further west, we have the Apollo Theater, which is located on this block. And also you have the Teresa, which is about 160 feet tall. This building is noted because back in the early 1960s, Fidel Castro stayed here as opposed to staying in Midtown Manhattan. You also have the Studio Museum, which is located directly across the street from the Harlem State Office Building. This area is well served by mass transit. There are a number of bus lines, at least 8 or 9 bus lines that traverse 125th Street, providing service to North Manhattan, Southern Manhattan, as well as express service to LaGuardia Airport, the M60. And also there are subway service provided at Lexington Avenue, the 4, 5, and 6 lines, as well as the 2-3 subway, which provides service at Lenox Avenue, which is known also as Malcolm X Boulevard. Regional rail service is provided at Park Avenue, roughly 1 block west of the project site by Metro North. Now, this image shows the special 125th Street district. This is the special district within which this project is located. The project site is outlined in a red oval. The 125th Street Special District was approved in 2008, and its goals was to support and encourage 125th Street as a regional business district, as well as an arts and entertainment cultural corridor. As the Commission can see, the zoning is very nuanced and very fine-tuned. We have medium-density C4-4A districts, which are located right here, which allow a maximum building height of about 80 to 85 feet and FARs of 4. We have lower-density R6A districts, which are mapped on the brownstone portions of these blocks. And also we have higher-density districts, the C47, which was mapped here to accommodate a now defunct proposal by Major League Baseball to put their headquarters here. In this district, the maximum allowed building height is 330 feet. And also we mapped the C63 district, also that allows higher buildings, 6 FAR bonusable to 8. And this capitalizes on the direct Metro North regional rail access located at the axis here. Just as a note, as part of the East Harlem rezoning, this C63 district is being upzoned to a C46 district, which is a 10 FAR district, to allow higher density than what's currently allowed, and also capitalizing on the direct mass transit and regional rail access that this district enjoys. This image shows an area map, and basically wanted to show you the configuration of the site. The site is 85 feet deep. The Fifth Avenue frontage is about 200 feet long. Again, the site has a little bit more than 16,000 square feet. You can see the requested C47 district, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the surrounding neighborhood, again, you have commercial along 125th Street. You have residential north of the proposed site, and then you have residential located south, and you have Marcus Garvey Memorial Park and the Mount Morris Park Historic District located to the south. Now, the proposed build program, again, this is a mixed income project. It will have 240 residential units, of which 72 would be made affordable through MIH. The building would rise to a height of about 240 feet or so, roughly 20 stories. It would have 23,000 square feet of commercial space, and it would have about 27,000 square feet of performance space, just about the same amount of performance space that it currently enjoys. This image shows some axonometric drawings, and just to orient the Commission, with the drawing on the left, this is Fifth Avenue, and this is East 125th Street. The base would be at 85 feet, and then the building would step back and top out at 240 feet. Under the existing C47 district, the maximum allowable height is 195 feet, and as a result of that, the applicant is seeking a text change to the special district to allow the building to rise to 245 feet to better accommodate the MIH program as well as their performance venue program within the proposed project site. The axon on the right shows Fifth Avenue. Again, building rise, the maximum base height is 85, rising to 240, and this is 125th Street located right here. This is the building in section. It shows what's happening in the base. Retail, the 23,000 square feet of retail, commercial would be placed in here, and also the theater space will be placed in here. The final design is yet to be vetted. However, I can tell the Commission that the performance space and the commercial space will be placed in the base. Above that, the 240 residential units would be placed in the taller element of the building. The requested actions are a rezoning from a C44A to a C47 district. The C44A, as I mentioned before, is a medium-density district which allows residential development, commercial and community facility up to 4 FAR within a contextual building envelope of about 80 to 85 feet. The C47 allows for a 10 FAR with MIH and also allows a building height of up to 195 feet. However, the proposed text amendment will allow the building to rise to 240 feet, thereby, again, enabling the applicant to accommodate the MIH as well as the theater program in the proposed project. These are the zoning text amendments that the applicant is requesting. One is the entrance to the performance venues change. Under the special 125th Street district, performance venue entrances have to be placed on 125th Street or within 100 feet of 125th Street. The performance venue entrance will be beyond that 100-foot point on Fifth Avenue. So the text is being amended to allow for the performance venue entrance to be placed beyond a point 100 feet north of 125th Street. Also, the applicant is seeking a text amendment to also modify signage. Marquee signs are not allowed beyond 100 feet of 125th Street. This is a special place. There will be a performance venue there. And one way to denote that is by having a marquee sign. So the marquee sign would be placed over the proposed entrance, and again, it would be placed at a point north of 125th Street, more than 100 feet from 125th Street. A new sub-district A would be created that would comprise the entire project site. Again, the text would be amended to allow the building to rise from 195 feet to 240 feet, which is its proposed building height. And lastly, the glazing requirements, which are fairly high. There's a 70% glazing requirement for ground floor spaces on 125th Street and Fifth Avenue. That's being modified to allow for a little more opacity. Theater spaces generally don't require a lot of glazing. There's a possibility that the theater space may be placed on the ground floor, and the applicant wants the flexibility to not to provide the 70% glazing as required in the special district regulations. This image shows proposed sub-district A. Again, to orient the commission, this is 125th Street, this is Fifth Avenue, this is the project site, and the sub-district A would allow the building to rise from 195 to 240 feet. The applicant is also seeking an approval for Appendix F to allow this to be designated as a mandatory inclusionary housing area. The applicant is seeking to use option 1, which would have 25% of the floor area made affordable to families making 60% of AMI, which is about $45,000 a year, or option 2, where 30% of the residential floor area would be made affordable to families making an average of 80% of AMI, which is $62,000 a year. Under either one, it's expected that the applicant will provide at least or a maximum of 72 affordable units with this project, which would leave 168 units that would be market rate. The applicant is also seeking approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 74-533, which would basically allow them to exempt the parking spaces that would be required for the market rate units for this project. This project is located in a transit zone, and because it's located in a transit zone, and because this is an affordable housing project, because there's an MIH affordable component to it, the applicant can apply for a special permit under 74-533, and that would basically enable them not to provide any parking for the 168 market rate spaces in this project. So with that, I conclude with the image that opened up this presentation. This is a rendering of what could happen here. This is, this is 125th Street located here. This is Fifth Avenue here. The theater space and the commercial space would be placed in the base, and the residential would be placed on top of it. That concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Edwin, and thank you also for speaking so glowingly about Dr. Tier. The fact that when you first prepared me for this, you spoke so warmly about her, had me do some research on her, and what an extraordinary person she was.
Absolutely.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Reade?
Thanks. Just had a quick question regarding the nature of the theater use in the facility. Does the National Black Theater have an ownership role in this project, or
Yes,
will
they
they
do.
be a tenant?
Yes, they do. They own the theater, you know, and what's interesting about this project's going to use the arts bonus, which will enable them to get the FAR they need to develop this project. Usually, we expected a developer to go out and seek a cultural end user. Here, National Black Theater approached us, and they brought the developer with them. They own this property, they manage this property, and they will tenant the performance space once the project is completed.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ifan?
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. It is exciting. Since it would be a zoning change or a zoning amendment, and we don't have more elaborate plans than the sketch, what's the protection that it wouldn't go above the 200 some odd feet?
It's in the text.
It's in the text.
It's in the
So there's
text.
a
That's
height
why-
limit.
Oh, yes, yeah,
Okay.
we capped the
So-
height at
So
245.
R12 has, oh, sorry, it's not the R12, it's the equivalent of R12.
It's equivalent to an R10. It's a
Oh,
height.
right, R12, okay, yes, okay,
Mhm.
got it. So it's in the text that the maximum height is 240 feet.
It'd be 245 feet, but it has to have an MIH component.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, if you don't have a mixed-use project with MIH in it,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't get up to the 240. But if you have MIH, then you get the increased density, and also with the arts bonus as well, then you can achieve the maximum height. But it's in the text.
And the arts bonus doesn't override the, in other words, it's not over a top, it's included within.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the way it works is that MIH gets them up to 10 FAR, and the arts bonus gets them an additional 2 FAR up to 12, but it has to be within 240 feet.
I just note that because it's a special district, the text will specify the maximum.
Thank you, very helpful. I think this is
Commissioner
my
Ortiz.
first one.
Hi,
Hey.
Edwin. I have a little bit of deja vu hearing you talk about 125th Street rezoning, since we worked on this so many years ago together. Two questions. You know, with respect to the marquee, off of 125th Street and the transparency requirements, I mean, obviously, we fought really hard to get those, and I'm curious what the rationale is for moving the entrance of the institution. If they do have that whole corner, why move the entrance off of 125th Street when we know it contributes to, you know, 125th Street as an entertainment destination? And could you speak a little bit more to where, I mean, to this image precisely, where they're looking to be released from the transparency requirements? I wasn't quite sure I understood it.
Okay, so in answer to your first question, this image shows the 125th Street frontage. This is 85 feet, and the rest of this is the block front on Fifth Avenue, which is 200 feet. So their entrance, their grand entrance would be somewhere here beyond 100 feet of 125th Street. This enables them to, it works better functionally for them to put the entrance here, you know, as opposed to putting it on 125th Street. That's something I can definitely double back with the architect on, but that's my understanding of that. In terms of the glazing, there'll still be glazing on 125th Street, and we did fight hard to ensure, it's part of activating the street. That's why we asked for the high level of transparency. But as I said before, you know, they could still put their theater on the second floor as shown in this rendering, which case you would have the transparency on the ground floor as shown here. But if they do decide to put their performance space here, at least they have some flexibility in doing so.
I mean, I would really encourage them to pursue an option that creates transparency on 125th Street. I think the last thing we want is you know, opaque spaces and spaces where you don't interface with the street.
Absolutely, and it could be that the transparency, you'll still have the transparency on 125th, but maybe on portions of Fifth Avenue you might not, depending on how the theater's designed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be a better
Yeah,
option.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. Edwin, we obviously don't have floor plans yet, but in the rendering, Does the theater extend to the northern boundary, that is to the 126th Street, all the way? There's a, looks like a column there that demarks the theater space. I'm just wondering, the
Right here?
space beyond that. Yeah, the space beyond that, going, right,
Right around
yeah.
there.
Is that also theater space?
In early drawings, we saw preliminary floor plans, and the thinking was to have two theater spaces. One would be like a theater in a round,
Right.
which would be closer to the 125th Street portion, and then maybe have a black box theater in the northern part. But we haven't seen anything final yet, so we really don't know how the space is going to be programmed. We just know that there will be performance space within the base of the building.
But they also have support space, right?
Yeah,
Administrative office space and what
Administrative
have you?
offices and what have you, absolutely.
Commissioner Knight.
So, building on Commissioner Knuckles' question, where is the retail contemplated?
The retail is contemplated somewhere within the base. It could be in the first two floors, and the theater could be on the second two floors, the third floor, the fourth floor. This rendering shows the retail on the ground floor at the very least, with the theater on top of it. But when this comes back, we hope to have more specificity as to exactly how the base will be programmed for the two uses contemplated there.
Commissioner Delahoo's.
Edwin, two questions. Can you talk a little bit more about the request to waive the parking? And now, is there any parking associated with the theater use?
No, there isn't any on-site parking associated with the theater. It's basically one of construction. This is a mixed-use,
Sure.
mixed-income project. Theoretically, they could provide parking, but that would take away funds that could be used to provide the affordable housing.
Okay. And is there a plan for a relocation of the theater during construction?
The theater will continue to operate at various locations. They're still vetting that out, where those locations are, but they will still very much be in play during the construction period, and then we'll reoccupy the space once it's done.
Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I very much share Commissioner Ortiz's concern about the transparency. I think we have lots of good examples around the city of recent theaters that have been built in buildings with lots of glazing around them, and that appearance of activity looking through, even if it's a theater lobby, looking through glass windows to see activity is really important, I think, on both 125th Street and Fifth Avenue. So I'm very skeptical about lifting the transparency requirements. I think it can be done without compromising their programming.
Other questions? Then this item is certified.
Thanks, Edwin. You also have the next item on our agenda. We're going to the Seaman Avenue rezoning, the proposed rezoning and zoning text amendment to facilitate residential development.
And I would actually, before the presentation, like to make a few opening remarks about this item. The department believes that this site, which as you'll soon see, is currently occupied by two-story detached residential townhouses, could appropriately be rezoned to allow new development that would be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. The private applicant, however, is applying for an upzoning to R8A, which would more than double the maximum permitted residential FAR, and which would allow buildings of up to 14 stories. The department believes that the requested upzoning is an inappropriate departure from the area's current uniform and consistent built character of 6 to 8 story buildings. The department maintains its strong commitment to producing affordable housing under MIH, and we do this by advancing zoning proposals that encourage residential development opportunities through increases in permitted density. But we do this only where appropriate and after thoughtful, thorough planning. In light of the city's growth and the concomitant need for more housing, it's not always the case that infill development must be limited to the precise scale of surrounding buildings. However, I want to be clear, our drive for new housing does not authorize subsume the importance of deliberate planning, rational planning. It is not housing at any cost. Our city presents many opportunities for appropriate rezonings to encourage residential development, but unfortunately, the application that's currently proposed is not one of these.
Okay, so this is the second project I'm presenting to you today for certification. As the chair has mentioned, the applicant is seeking approval of a zoning map amendment, but also a zoning text amendment to rezone property located along portions of Seaman Avenue, a rezoning area along Seaman Avenue. The project site is located within Inwood in Manhattan Community District 12. This image shows the proposed rezoning area. The proposed rezoning area is located on the west side of Seaman Avenue. This is Payson Avenue located right here. The proposed rezoning area comprises 5 buildings, 100 Seaman Avenue, 112 to 114 Seaman Avenue, which is the project site, 116 Seaman Avenue, and 175 Payson Avenue. 100 Seaman Avenue was built in 1929. It's an 8-story building. It has 84 residential units. 116 Seaman Avenue is a 7-story building built in 1938. It has 32 units. 175 Payson Avenue, built in 2008, 2009, through the 421A program, has 12 units. And the proposed development site, which comprises 2 townhouses, is currently vacant. And they were built in 1940. This image shows the Payson Avenue side of the proposed rezoning area. This is Payson Avenue, located right here. This is Seaman Avenue. And you can see the build context of Seaman Avenue, which are basically 6-story buildings, 5-story buildings along Seaman Avenue. This is going north in Seaman Avenue. And in my opening remarks, I talk about the existing build condition of the proposed rezoning area. This image shows the proposed development site, 112 to 114 Seaman Avenue. They both are 2-story sort of townhouse-looking buildings. They were built in 1940. The development site is about 5,100 square feet of lot area and a little more than 6,300 square feet of floor area. This is the back side of the building, so you can notice that there's a difference in elevation between Payson Avenue and Seaman Avenue. We're basically seeing the second floor of both buildings. This is an area shot, just taking a step back. The area outlined in red is the proposed rezoning area. And you can see the existing built context and scale of the surrounding neighborhood. Most of these buildings are pre-war buildings. They have anywhere from 75 to 100 feet in height or so. They're about anywhere from 6 to 8 stories. The FARs can range anywhere from maybe 4 to 5.5. They are high lot coverage buildings, and again, predominantly residential, with some ground floor retail on the major streets, like 207th Street here, and Broadway located along here. The existing zoning is R72, which is a height factor district, which allows a residential density of 3.44, but you can build up to 4 FAR within a contextual building envelope. Also height factor buildings anywhere from 12 to 14 stories are allowed here. The proposed build program is an 11-story residential building. It will have a base height of about 82 feet, a maximum building height of 113 feet, an FAR of 7.2, which is double than what is currently allowed, and would provide 40 units, of which either 10 or 12 would be made affordable through the MIH program. The requested actions are a zoning map amendment from R72 to an R8A, which is located right here. The rezoning area has 290 feet of frontage along Seaman Avenue and 343 feet of frontage along Payson Avenue. The RAA district would allow a residential density up to 7.2 with MIH. It would require a contextual building envelope, 85-foot base with a max of 125. However, with MIH, which is what the applicant is proposing for this project, the base could be 105 with a maximum building height of 145. I must remind the commission that one of the things you're looking at is the building envelope, the appropriateness of the building envelope that could be using the MIH, which is a maximum base of 105 and a maximum building height of 145. As part of the build program, the applicant is including a mandatory inclusionary housing sort of component, where either 10 affordable units would be provided at 25% using the 25% option, or option 2, where 30% affordable, 30% of the residential floor area would be made affordable to families making no more than 80% of AMI, and again, that would be about 12 affordable units. These images show what the building could look like. We're looking at Seaman Avenue, and this is 100 Seaman Avenue. Again, this building is 80 feet tall, 8 stories. This is 116 Seaman Avenue. This building is about 71 feet tall, and this is the proposed building with a base of 82, rising to 113. This is another image looking south along Seaman Avenue. Again, you can see the base here, and you can see the building topping out at 113. And this is the back of the building, where on Payson Avenue, looking into the back of the building. This last image shows the proposed development site, 112 to 114 Seaman Avenue. And again, you can see the surrounding build context of the surrounding neighborhood. That concludes my presentation.
Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Delahoo's.
Edwin, 2 questions. So the applicant only owns those 2 particular smaller buildings?
Correct.
They're not in contract for any of the adjacent properties?
No.
And the adjacent properties, I would assume that probably the majority of them are also rent-stabilized housing?
They are, no, actually, the only one that's subject to rent regulation is 175 Payson Avenue. The others are not.
Thank you.
Other comments? Commissioner Levin.
And when I think it's important for us to understand what the reasonable worst-case development scenario would be under the current zoning. You mentioned that a height factor, an R72 height factor building could go to, did you say?
R72, generally you can have a 12 to 14-story height factor building. This is a 5,000 square foot lot. You can probably top out maybe around 10 stories or something like that, 9 or 10 stories here. But the density would be lower. You still have to do a 3.44 residential FAR, not a 7.2
Right.
as requested here.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm assuming we're going to hear similar public comment to what we heard on Sherman Avenue. Where
Yes.
there was confusion about, as of right, what they were proposing and the reasonable worst-case development scenario, and the numbers started sliding all over the place, and people didn't understand what really could get built here. I think it's important for us to be clear about that. But thank you for that. And I noticed in some of the images, there seem to be lot line windows in 116.
Yes.
There are lot line windows?
They're lot line windows, however, they're not legal windows.
Okay, but they
Yeah.
probably got legal people behind those windows,
Probably
so.
so. Probably so. That's one of the first things that we checked when we looked at, are these legal windows? And they are not. One other thing that I want to sort of reiterate is that the R8A, although the proposed build program it doesn't use the full envelope, the 145 feet. What's at issue is whether or not the 145-foot envelope is appropriate.
Right,
in
we have to
location.
assume it will get built, because there are no restrictions here that require them to build what they're showing us. So
That's
it
correct.
they could build to the full 145 feet, and we have to compare that against what they could do as of right.
Right.
Yes, Commissioner Efron.
And just building off that point, are any of the other buildings, if they're not subject to rent regulation, underbuilt?
Under the current zoning, no. The one, actually, let's go. Yeah, okay, so
There's a tree, is that?
this
an
building,
extra FAR?
here is like 5.9 FAR. This is, remember, the underlying zoning is R72, which has a maximum residential FAR of 3.44. So this is overbuilt, and this is slightly overbuilt.
But under the new zoning, if that happens to be the building that's not rent regulated,
They
could
would comply, yeah.
comply, they
Yeah.
could build up.
Yeah.
but it would be subject to MIH.
Yeah. No, the
They
enlargement
could build
would not.
as of right just to the regular zoning.
Right.
Okay.
To clarify, what was the recommended, not the RA, what was the recommended zoning from the department?
We actually did not
You didn't
go
recommend, right.
through a recommendation. This was, we explained to the applicant the concerns that the department had about it, given just the absolute consistency of the built form, but the applicant chose to pursue this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just following up on that, so their applicant is asking for R8A, correct?
Yes.
Can you remind me what would be allowed under R7A?
R7A residential district allows residential development of 4 FAR within a contextual building envelope of 80 to 85 feet. The base would be 40 to 65, maximum building height would be about 85 feet.
85,
Yeah,
okay.
roughly 8 stories.
So with the MIH, it would be 4 or
Oh.
6? Would-
Well, you know, with the R7A MIH, the density is so low, there's no MIH scheduled for R7A. Not for R7A.
MIH only gets mapped when there is a substantial zoning.
Oh, okay. All right, from R7. Right.
So 3.6 to 4, isn't it?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Okay, well, as I suspect was evident from my opening remarks, the department does not support the application, but we do believe that if an application is complete, that we bring it forward for certification and then that, so that the public process can begin. So this application is certified.
Thank you, Edwin. Let's now go to the proposed special Harlem River Waterfront District expansion, which involves zoning map and zoning text amendment to modify existing regulations as well as to expand the district. Our presenter is Oscar Oliver Didier from the Bronx office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The application before you is the Department of City Planning-led Special Harlem River Waterfront District Amendment and Expansion Area. In terms of the location and actions, the geography of the special district is in Community District 1 of the Lower Concourse area in the South Bronx. The New York City Department of City Planning is proposing both a zoning map and text amendment to, one, update the 2009 Special Harlem River Waterfront District regulations, which appear here, the boundary appears here in orange. And secondly, to expand the special district to extend the waterfront access plan to the south, which is sort of shown here in red. From now on, we would be calling the orange boundary or the existing Harlem River waterfront the core sub-district, and then, as we will see, we will be calling the southern edge or the southern expansion area the south sub-district. I would just add that actually the boundary here shown in yellow is the Lower Concourse North project, which is an EDC-led project that was certified back in April, and it will become, at the end of this process, the north sub-district, even though it is a standalone application. The goals of this zoning map amendment and the zoning text amendments are to, one, update the existing Special Harlem Waterfront District, to, one, create flexible building forms to encourage the development of affordable housing. Secondly, we're addressing some easements and other restrictions that we have more information on. And then finally, we are meeting flood resiliency needs in the area. The expansion area itself and the purpose of it is to expand that special district to encompass 2 waterfront blocks to the south to address unique conditions and ensure a lively, accessible waterfront open space. An overview of the existing zoning shows us how the special district itself, again here shown in the dashed dark orange, was part of a broader rezoning that was called Lower Concourse rezoning back in 2009. And then the proposed expansion area, shown here in red, was part of the broader Port Morris, or lies, I should say, in the broader Port Morris-Bruckner Boulevard rezoning back in 2004, which mapped a mixed-use manufacturing and residential district. In terms of the land use and the zoning, the Harlem River waterfront itself right now is zoned for mid-density commercial and residential uses. It also mapped a voluntary inclusionary housing area. and the expansion area is zoned for light industrial and residential, as we just sort of mentioned. As part of the special district itself, I should add there was a map park, which we'll talk a little bit more about now in a little bit. And then finally, I also wanted to add that we are not changing the zoning district as part of this process. In terms of development and transit, the area is rich with important institutions such as Ostos College and Lincoln Hospital, rich in accessibility, existing NYCHA communities, and recent affordable housing development. However, since 2009, we have not seen development occur within the special district boundary itself. Now let's talk a little bit more about the place itself. We see here the special district boundaries again, in orange and in red, and you sort of see to the west, the Manhattan side, the Harlem River itself, and then the special district and the lower concourse area. One also sort of see how this area is sort of connected by bridges, and this is the Metro North rail line, but most of these bridges themselves hold pedestrian access as well. And what I would also add that the area right now is straddled on both edges by height and buildings on both sides. And in the immediacy of the special district itself, again, these boundaries that I'm pointing to here, on one side there is the Mayor Deegan Expressway, which provides challenges to accessibility, and on the waterfront side, or the shoreline side, there is the Oak Point Rail Link, a freight line that runs along the shoreline. When we go down into the area itself, and at the perspective of the pedestrian, one can sort of see both infrastructural challenges and how they sort of straddle the special district itself. You sort of see here the Mayor Deegan Expressway, and again, the Oak Point Rail Link abutting that shoreline. We've also learned a lot about resiliency post-Sandy. The majority of the existing and proposed Harlem River waterfront is in the 1% annual risk flood zone, and a lot of the regulatory environment around resiliency has also changed as well. We also have a better understanding of easements and unbuildable areas. And one can sort of see here the Deegan easement, which we did have knowledge back in 2009, but we now have more information regarding a DEP easement and an actual additional sort of square or trapezoidal area that is also unbuildable. And I should just add that this sort of pinches prospective development in the sort of northern edge of the existing core subdistrict, which is sort of shown here. In terms of opportunities, however, there is a lower concourse investment strategy that the mayor allocated $194 million for the area in 2015 as part of an investment strategy to, number one, fund the lower concourse north mixed-use affordable housing development. Two, develop the new Harlem River Park, which we pointed to that was mapped as a park in the initial 2009 special district. It also includes street intersection improvements along Exterior Street. Exterior Street is actually the street that runs just underneath the Mayor Deegan Expressway, which is sort of pointed to that there are a lot of challenges in terms of access, so this is all a good thing. And then finally, commercial broadband access for the rest of the sort of neighborhood surrounding the special district. In the end, these are all sort of catalysts for affordable housing, improved access, and hopefully job growth. Jumping back then to the 2009 Harlem River Waterfront Special District, the goals of that original district itself was to ensure the development maintains a human scale, guarantee a variety of building structures and a varied skyline, maximize waterfront views and facilitate a strong streetscape, encourage eyes on the street and safety, ensure a range of uses on the waterfront, and encourage people to use waterfront open spaces. And I will add that as part of this process, we are really not changing these goals or the spirit of them. And just to give a bit more insight and details in terms of the special district itself, here's a brief overview that shows that, one, the special district divided the area itself into 9 parcels that go from 1 through 9 when you look at them from north to south. They also incorporated a waterfront access plan tools, such as a 40-foot shore public walkway, visual corridors and upland connections, and specific areas where supplemental public access areas should be placed. They were also requiring active uses and wrap parking, bulk regulations, tower location and height, and a map park, which again is sort of highlighted here and shown between parcel 1 and 2, here on the map and here on the rendering. So as part of the update that we're proposing for the core sub-district, we are providing building bulk variety and design flexibility to encourage the development of affordable housing. We are also providing flexibility on parcel 1 to accommodate easements. Number 3, we are requiring ground floor active use and wrap parking only on key locations. And number 4, we are allowing greater options for resiliency design. So this is actually the bulk or the existing bulk of the 09 special district. It had 60 bases that would range from 60 to 85 feet with towers above and a required variation of street wall height, which you sort of see here with a dark and lighter orange. As part of our bulk amendments and updates, we are proposing this, which sort of lowers the height along the shoreline, maximizes views of the waterfront, and that's why we sort of have this sort of U-shaped building. And finally, and more importantly, provides the flexibility to support the development of affordable housing. And this is done by providing more option and even hybrid scenarios. And one can sort of see here the yellow portion, which is sort of like giving the incentive that block and plank construction, which is more typical of affordable housing development, be developed side by side with tower construction. But there's also a scenario, and again, here's where the variety kicks in, that you could have an entirely block and plank building. So what we are doing is, again, providing the options and the flexibility so that these multiple scenarios can take shape. And this is how we're achieving it. Fronting the shore public walkway itself, you would have a base that ranges from 0 to 85 feet. You would have a required opening, again, that sort of U-shaped area that ranges from 0 to 45 feet. And then you would have a 125 maximum transition height. 50 feet from the shore public walkway or away from the shoreline, we would have a base that ranges from 60 to 105 feet and a 155 maximum transition height, which would contain, again, the sort of the towers above that. The towers themselves, we're sort of simplifying the rules and providing design flexibility for them, but I would just add that we are not changing the tower heights as part of this process. So in the end, we sort of achieved this sort of updated vision where, one, the development steps down towards the water, as one sort of sees here, and also bulk variety is also achieved for the sake of visual interest in or around the waterfront access area. In terms of the easements themselves, and talking about that a little bit more in detail, one can sort of see here in the left how the 2009 requirements were really sort of pinching the possibility of having development on that parcel. And one can sort of see that actual parts of the building footprint lie on some of these easement areas. So as part of this process, what we're doing is, number one, removing a loop road requirement that was sort of placed in 2009, shown here in gray. We're realigning and mapping an upland connection here. Again, you sort of see that the edge now sort of opens up and provides a better fit for that envelope. And then finally, we're shifting a supplemental public access area, which was located right next to the park, and we're shifting it here on top of the DEP easement, where it actually makes more sense and actually more easily constructed. In terms of wrap use and screening, the sort of wrap use sort of has ground floor parking and the requirement that it must be wrapped by uses along both the shore public walkway and the park. And actually, the current 2009 requirements are very onerous. They sort of require 100% wrap use, and this really affects the floor plate efficiency of most of these parcels. So what we're doing is actually keeping the 100% wrap use requirement both fronting the shore public walkway and the map park on parcels 1 and 2. But then for parcel 3, 4, and 5, we're sort of reducing and updating it to 50%. So you can sort of have a mix of both uses and, again, screening, which would sort of require you to sort of give certain treatments, mostly planting, to those sort of walls that would be facing the open areas. However, we are also requiring active uses on corners. And you sort of see it here in red and how they sort of are located, especially along important areas or key areas where people will be drawn into the waterfront. So really, this is a way of making sure that it feels safe and inviting and it's drawing people in, and we have them placed in the locations that we feel are most important. So in these active use areas, we would actually have the development or the possible development of commercial or community facility uses. Also affecting the streetscape, as we were saying before, is resiliency itself. The design flood elevation in this area ranges from 2 feet to 11 feet. And it's very likely, actually, that development raises buildings for flood protection purposes, which could unfortunately lead to blank walls, which actually the only attenuation requirements right now are planting. So what we're doing is, again, providing both room and requiring design elements for blank walls taller than 4 feet. And again, this sort of includes not only planting, but also seating, lighting, bike racks, and stuff like that. So you can sort of see how we're both providing the flexibility here with the movable sort of location for the street wall, but also you have this sort of varied location of all these sort of design requirements that have to be placed. So in the end, again, this is sort of like how we're achieving throughout all these measures an active, resilient, and safe public realm. And you can sort of see here some of the green area, the shore public walkway, and how you would have some transparency along the shore public walkway itself. Moving on to the expansion area, which again is the sort of the red boundary here, or the red area here in the south, we will be addressing unique conditions to ensure lively, accessible waterfront open space. And again, this is the visual or the pictometry image that sort of specify the specific location of this area. But also looking at it from the north, one can see again that this area is affected by both the Mayor Deegan Expressway and again, as we were saying earlier, the Oak Point Rail Link freight line. When we're looking at the ground, one can also see how this is affecting the adjacencies of the site from a pedestrian perspective. Another challenge is general accessibility. The expansion area is, again, a large waterfront block composed of multiple independently owned lots. A waterfront access plan will allow us to customize access and address these unique conditions. And again, I should just add that this plan that I'm going to show now was actually informed by public outreach that was conducted in Community Board 1 and an input we received last year. And this is the waterfront access plan itself and how it sort of would change and ensure accessibility along the expansion area. So again, the aim itself would be to break up the block to provide proper access. And the way to do that, again, is to, one, map upland connections towards this sort of existing inlet that lies here. And we would also sort of have active uses on key corners to just make sure that people are not only sort of feel invited and welcome to this area, but it also feels safe and active. So in the end, the proposed changes to the special Harlem River waterfront area and its expansion area to the south will encourage the development of affordable housing by creating flexible building form, will address easements and other restrictions, will meet flood resiliency needs, and would finally address unique conditions to ensure a lively, accessible open space on the Harlem River waterfront in the Bronx. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Arfon.
Thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
In trying to understand the most southern portion, those are lots that, or the individual lots on that block are industrial in nature.
So again, it's an MX area, so you
Yeah.
would have both. But
Yes.
right now, there's this particular lot right here, which is lot 55, is actually a self-storage site that was built around more or less the last 10 years. You have the Bruckner building, which was recently repurposed and retrofitted to fit an office building, and there is proposed residential development on the two sides flanking Third Ave Bridge. So I would say that there's like a mix, especially in the near future.
Right, and when MX was created, there was a degree of cynicism among manufacturing advocates that that would mean that it would become residential, and this was just a segue to that. So in order to maintain our role of keeping the public not cynical about MX zones, if you could just let us know, or if maybe you know now, or when it comes back to us, the number of jobs that are there, and whether the nature of them happen to be manufacturing, or I guess self-storage wouldn't be necessarily.
Right.
Very few jobs, but
Right.
are there other employers in that neighborhood?
Yeah,
That would be
I don't have
useful.
the specific numbers with me for the particular expansion area we're talking about, but again, we can get back to you about that.
That would be appreciated, because it's a neighborhood that also needs
Right.
jobs, and it would be good to know what the mix is now.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, to the south, right on the other side of Lincoln Avenue, is that state-owned property?
Here, yes, this is sort of state-owned property here, which is where the freight line sort of has I wouldn't call it a stop, but there's a trash depository that then sort of
Is
transits.
that the site that was RFP'd
Yes,
by
it
the
was.
state?
RFEI, actually, a request for
RFEI by the
ideas.
state.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any sense of
Timing?
that project, and how these two things presumably might interface?
So we really don't have much more information other than that there was a request for ideas that was put out there. I do know that they specified that whatever ideas would be proposed had to keep the existing sort of train or freight line depot or like the use below it.
They had to maintain manufacturing on the ground
So
floor.
right now
With
these
the
are
platform, there was the idea
Oh,
was
I don't know about that. I know that right now it's just literally train tracks that you have right there.
yeah.
And then the trash storage facility.
It will obviously be important to make sure we are creating this
Right.
continuity regardless of
Definitely.
underlying ownership. And then the other question I had, I know we've discussed this in the past, the sort of placement of commercial, the dispersal, the even dispersal of commercial throughout the site at corners. And, I'm not quite sure I understand the rationale from a business owner's perspective, because we know it's difficult for businesses to be isolated and they benefit from sharing customers. And so the concept, I think, in theory, is an interesting one, but I don't know if we want to, be so granular
Yeah.
about this particular.
What I would say to that is that actually it's not that we're prohibiting active uses or retail to occur in other areas. What we're doing is making sure that at these particular geographies, it happens and is required. That does not mean that you would not have, again, other opportunities for retail space, community facility space, and even transparency in other areas.
But if those spaces, if there's no demand for retail at those locations, what do we end up with?
It could also be a community facility use.
I would just add, right now, you're introducing residential uses where today there are no local services in this neighborhood. So we think as these come online, there will be demand for local services. It's 3,000 or 1,000 units on the waterfront.
Right.
I mean, it's a significant development without kind of local infrastructure. So we need to think about that whole thing
Yeah,
together.
I mean, it's the theoretical issue here, the
Yeah.
sort of this even dispersal of retail throughout, as opposed to creating, a district or a commercial overlay where we encourage some sort of concentration of neighborhood serving uses, which obviously they are going to need, which then, results in businesses benefiting from co-location, which we know they want. So, I just share that because we see this a lot, this required retail, and it ends up being nonprofit space or other non-retail use because you can't find a retail use for this. And if we anticipate what retailers want and need and businesses want and need, maybe we can result in, a better set of services and offerings.
I mean, I would just reiterate what Oscar had noted before, which was
Into the microphone for the
the underlying requirement, you can stay there, is much more excessive. It's got requirement for active uses all along the Shore Public Walkway. We felt that was too much, so we were indeed trying to respond to retail desires, retailers' desires to not have it be, and the building owners' desires to not have it be too excessive requirement along the Shore Public Walkway. So yeah, I hear your point.
Further comments? Commissioner Delos.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Ortiz's thoughts, and it sounds like there's been some conversation with some potential developers. So never mind. Never mind.
That was a quick one. Yes, Commissioner Levin.
I guess I have a similar concern about the change in the parking wrap requirements. I mean, that's a building cost issue primarily, right? Is that
And-
what's motivating this?
And floor plate efficiency. I should add that most of these lots are very constrained in depth, and they're also pretty irregular, especially to the south. So it's really important to also sort of provide this flexibility. And I would add also the parcel 1 easements. So again, it's a matter of making sure that things fit in more appropriately, and especially parking and other sort of uses.
Because, you know, the wrapping was something we cared a lot about at a prior point in planning, and, you know, objectively, wrapping parking seems like a good thing to do. So I'm going to need to think more about how it
Again,
applies here.
Well, I mean, it's to the exact same point for the retail locations. We had these very strict requirements, and wanted to step back a little bit from them for efficiency's sake, for affordability's sake, all of those things, but still have a very attractive, active waterfront. So we were very judicious in our selection of locations where we were requiring it and where we're requiring retail. That was our perspective.
Yes, Commissioner Arfon.
Is this coming about because there hasn't been activity here?
That's one of the reasons, but it's also addressing all these other challenges that we've sort of recently discovered, and opportunities, I should add. The investment that the mayor is doing, I think, sort of merits also looking at this area and making sure that everything makes sense.
Okay, it was just hard to understand the context in which this came up, but,
Bless you.
This is actually unlike many of the other items where there are particular projects. This is an area that the city, not just city planning, has been looking at as one of an area that has growth potential. It has the waterfront. There is a commitment, even in the absence of development proposals, of significant capital funds to bring it about. And so this was the department's attempt to step back and say, how is it that we can put in place a set of controls that will achieve our objective, which is to see this a vibrant residential and mixed-use community, a restored waterfront. And so none of these, this isn't being driven by a project, it's doing what those of us in the department love to do, which is long-term planning.
that's really helpful.
Yes, Commissioner Deleuze.
And just one other thought. I'm just curious, how many of the sites in the district are brownfield sites? I'm just wondering to what extent that's a factor in why things haven't moved as quickly as the administration would have hoped.
We can look and see which ones exactly were identified. There was a rail turnaround on this, especially where the park is. And I know the parcels to the south, the ones flanking the bridge, also had to go through cleanup. But that's an interesting question we can get back to you about.
Yes, Commissioner Money.
I have a question, and it's around the concern about the parking and the wrapping of the parking. I mean, I'm sure some of you may be familiar with this, but up at the Bronx, at the Botanical Garden, on the Webster Avenue, the Botanical Garden put up a garage with 50% transparency, but they also put in these screens, I'm gonna call them screens for now, let's call them chain link for a second, that reach the height of the building, whereas this ivy grew in between, and you don't see the cars anymore. You still have a 50%, requirement. And so at the end of the day, basically it's 100%, but it's a green wall that actually lends to the beauty of the building. Is something that could be considered here.
Other questions? Okay, then this application will be certified. I'm sure we'll learn more during the public review process.
Thank you, Oscar. Let's now go to 1965 Lafayette Avenue, which involves proposed zoning map and zoning text amendments to facilitate mixed-use developments with affordable housing. Our presenter is Jutan Horstman, lead project manager from the Bronx office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So this is an application by Park Lane Residences. The proposed development would create a total of 425 affordable residential units and 2 14-story buildings, and would have approximately 20,000 square feet of ground floor commercial uses. To facilitate the proposed development, the applicant is requesting a rezoning and an MIH text amendment. The proposed site is located in Bronx Community District 9 in the Soundview neighborhood, located here. Currently in the project area is the Park Lane apartment building, which is a 21-story, 352-unit Mitchell-Lama rental building. The building was disposed of by the city in 1967 and built in 1971 with 50-year deed restrictions for the Mitchell-Lama development that are set to expire in 2021. The applicant is currently in negotiations with HPD to renew the lease on the Mitchell-Lama building. Additionally, to comply with the deed restrictions, the applicant will need to receive HPD and DHCR approval. The Park Lane apartment building block is a single zoning lot with 248 parking spaces located on the site, play areas, sitting areas, and 2 swimming pools, which were approved in a 1966 BSA special permit as well. The site is bounded by Lafayette Avenue to the south, White Plains Road to the west, Pugsley Avenue to the east. All 3 of these are wide streets. Turnbull Avenue to the north is a narrow street. The entire block is the project area, as it is a single zoning lot. The applicant is proposing the new development on the westernmost portion of the site, which would be the development site. The development site and existing Park Lane Residences building are proposed to be rezoned and are identified as the rezoning area. The surrounding area is a mix of retail, residential, and community facility uses. Immediately north of the site is the Bruckner Plaza Shopping Center, a large 1- and 2-story strip mall-style shopping complex with 1,500 parking spaces. There is additional 1-story retail to the west. These retail areas are considered regional retail, which serve a larger area and are easily accessed by the Bruckner Boulevard just to the north. There are a number of community facilities, including the Bronx High School, which are the Bronx Guild and Eldai East Stevenson Highs, Bronx Middle School to the west, PS 138 to the east, and PS 182 to the south. East of Pugsley Avenue is a 1- and 2-family detached neighborhood, while there are a number of large apartment buildings to the northeast, northwest, west, and southwest, including the Stevenson Commons, located here, which is a 21-story, 955-unit mixed-use development. Bus routes in the area include the BX5 running east-west along White Plains and Lafayette Avenue, BX36 running north-south along White Plains and Lafayette, and BX39, which runs generally along White Plains Road. The nearest subway is Parkchester, served by the 6th. Nearest subway station is the Parkchester station, about 3/4 mile north on the 6th line. So the project site is currently located in R6 zoning district, which allows mid-density residential up to a 2.43 FAR. As previously noted, the R6 has Bronx High School, Bronx Middle School, post office, and nursing home in Stevenson Commons. Immediately north of the site is the C41 zoning district, which has an R5 residential equivalent and is mapped as a commercial district with a high parking requirement. The Bruckner Plaza Shopping Center is located in the zoning district. Further to the east is an R4 district, which permits 1- and 2-family detached and semi-detached residences. The applicant is proposing 2 buildings on the westernmost portion of the site. The development would create a total of 425 affordable residential units and 2 14-story buildings, and would have approximately 20,000 square feet of ground floor commercial uses. In order to facilitate the project, the applicant is proposing the current R6 to be rezoned to R8 over the portion of the site which would contain the existing building and the proposed development. The current R6 zoning district is using nearly the entire R6 development potential for the existing building. The R6 district permits an FAR up to 7.2 and was chosen as it allows the existing building to conform with zoning and provide enough development potential for the proposed building. The applicant is seeking a C24 commercial overlay over the proposed development, which would permit the ground floor commercial uses. The applicant is also seeking a text amendment to create a mandatory inclusionary housing area over the R8 portion of the zoning lot. The proposed buildings would be 100% affordable, with the applicant seeking MIH options 1 and 2. Option 1 requires 25% and 60% below AMI, and option 2 requires 30% at 80% or below AMI. The development would create 107 units of permanently affordable housing if option 1 is used, or 128 units of permanently affordable housing if option 2 is used. The AMI levels in the proposal would range from 30% to 100% of the AMI. The AMI of the surrounding area is $46,250. So the proposed development would be located on the western portion of the zoning lot, where there is an existing 79-space parking lot and basketball court. The development would consist of 2 buildings, the affordable family building, which is here highlighted lightly in blue, which would contain 292 units and the approximately 20,000 square feet of ground floor commercial use, and would access Lafayette Avenue, White Plains Road, and Turnbull Avenue. The senior building, which would be located here in red, would contain 133 units and front Turnbull Avenue. These 2 buildings would connect in the basement, where there would be a 67-space parking garage. The site is further reconfigured to provide 42 surface parking spaces between the existing Park Lane residence and the proposed building here. The area further The area furthest east, which currently exists as a 122-space parking lot, would be reconfigured to accommodate 159 parking spaces. In total, the site would provide 269 parking spaces, up from the current 248 parking spaces. The 2 BSA-approved swimming pools would remain, and the basketball court would be relocated on the site here. The site would contain approximately 114,000 square feet total open space on the site. This site plan better shows the ground floor layout with the residential entrance for the family building on Lafayette here, and to the north on Turnbull Avenue, and on White Plains Road, the commercial entrance. And then for the senior building, the entrance here, and then the parking garage entrance on Turnbull as well. So both buildings in the proposed development will be 14 stories, where they sit on an approximately 100-foot high, 10-story base, setting back 10 feet on Lafayette Avenue and White Plains Road, which are wide streets, and 15 feet on Turnbull Avenue, and stepping up to 14 feet, or about 138 feet for the total. Here's another cross-section for context with the neighboring 21-story Park Lane residence building next door. So in conclusion, the proposed development would create a total of 425 affordable residential units in 2 14-story buildings and would have approximately 20,000 square feet of ground floor commercial uses. Thank you.
Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Deleuze.
Hi, 2 questions. One is, what are the AMI levels for the remaining 70 to 75% of the units that are not MIH? Do we have that yet, or is that something still being discussed?
So the proposal would be 100% affordable, and the range of that affordability would be between 30 and 100%. I can talk with the applicant and get a better breakdown for you, though.
Okay. And the other question I have, did you say that MIH would only be mapped on the new development and not the existing Mitchell Llama that also would become R8?
That portion would, so MIH would be mapped over the entire R8 portion, and then the Mitchell Llama building is in that R8, so it would be
Okay,
mapped over
I
that.
misunderstood.
Yes.
That makes much more sense. Thanks.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
Well, it won't surprise you that I have a question about scale on this one. Here again, we're going from an R6 to an R8 in an area that's largely something much smaller density. And I guess my question is whether, I realize it's a question of balancing neighborhood scale with the desire to produce affordable housing, and this one has the appeal of being 100% affordable, and it's in those kinds of situations that we've reached for extra density. But the zoning map prompts me to ask, could this project work at a R7 type zoning designation rather than the double jump up to the R8?
Sure. So the applicant needs the R8 in order to comply with the zoning for the existing building and for the proposal. They are actually agreeing to an HPD deed restriction on the site to limit the building to 14 stories, which would be a little better context, but also to provide.
So that's more like an R7 scale.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But I mean, the neighborhood does have quite a few larger buildings in the area. There's a big NYCHA development here all around. So, and this is a little bit of a transitioning area as well, although, there is some lower scale
Yeah, you look on the
shopping
right-hand
center.
side of that picture and that
Yeah,
illustrates
yeah,
the
there is a
concern.
lower density neighborhood here.
Okay.
Commissioner Efron.
I just want to say that I normally would be chiming in here too, but it is 3 wide streets additionally, and the narrow street does not have the development on it.
Yeah, all 3 of these streets are 100 feet wide, and Turnbull Avenue is 60 feet wide. And north of that is the Bruckner Shopping Center, and there is quite a bit of a distance with all the parking spaces there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems as if there really is care to segregate out the lower density from the other uses, which may be lower in zoning, but really are very specific non-residential uses. Right? Is that the rationale?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd also note the picture being worth 1,000 words, the difference in the built context here, which is quite varied. And also, we certainly, as a department in making presentations to the commission, will focus on providing the context so that one doesn't just look at a zoning map, which is just what's theoretically possible as opposed to what actually is built. And so this is one where the department was comfortable.
And I apologize, I put the wrong presentation on, but you actually have in your presentations one with more context for some closer images in there, so.
Yes, Commissioner Deleuze.
Just one more, and perhaps this also helps explain things. Can you just talk a little bit more about the basketball court? And I see that there's other recreational uses proposed in the new facility. Now, is that just for those buildings, or is that going to be open to others? I mean, I guess the question is, is there more than one public benefit being provided here?
So currently, there is a basketball court right here, which is being relocated to this portion right here. I don't know, I have to ask the applicant to respond to how open it is to the community. But that would be the one thing today that is changing. Then the rest of the portion is the parking lot.
Okay.
Other questions? Then another application is certified.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Let's now move to 1776 East Chester Road, which involves proposed zoning map and zoning text amendments and a special permit to facilitate nonprofit hospital staff residences. Commissioners, I'd like to introduce Michael Cavalier, who's making his first presentation today before you. He's a member of the Bronx.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a proposal for the development, to facilitate the development of 182 units of nonprofit hospital stealth dwellings. This project has 3 requested actions to facilitate these. These are a zoning map amendment, a zoning text amendment, and a special permit, and I'll get into each of these in more detail in just a couple of slides here. But to give a quick overview of the project is located in Community District 11 in the northeast region of the Bronx. The local context is characterized by just to the right of the screen here would be Pelham Bay Park. Running north here is the Pelham Parkway. This is the Hutchinson River Parkway here, just to the east of the site. We have some Metro train yards, MTA train yards, I apologize, here. And then the Metro North Amtrak rail line running just to the west of the site. This entire site here is the Hutchinson Metro Center. It's characterized by large institutional and medical uses in the area. Notably, on the northern portion of the site is the Public Safety Answering Center, which was the subject of a site selection that came before this commission in 2009. That facility is now complete. As part of that, also recently and pertinent to this project, is Marconi Street that runs immediately to the east of the development site, which was mapped to provide access to the Public Safety Answering Center. Other large institutional uses in the area include the Jacobi Medical Center, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, Montefiore Medical Center, Calvary Hospital, and the Bronx Psychiatric Center. The Bronx Psychiatric Center, I would note, that has this portion is currently being redeveloped. It's the subject of a development that seeks to build between 1.5 and 1.9 million square feet of new commercial and office space on the site. The Bronx Psychiatric Center itself is currently being rebuilt and concentrated in the southern portion of the site. And the rezoning area is the final item I would note on this map, which extends along the Metro North lines, down East Chester Road to Water Street, and then back up at a somewhat irregular angle, which I'll discuss in a minute, as it is a subject of a portion of the zoning on this project. This is a slightly more zoomed in area here. We can see the development site here. On the development site, there's an existing project known as Metro Atrium. Metro Atrium currently includes a 125-room Marriott hotel. It also includes an LA Fitness, for which a physical culture establishment action was sought via the BSA. There's also an Applebee's, a Dunkin' Donuts, and a health center there as well as 3 floors of Class A commercial office space. Office space there. The back of the lot, which is the subject of this application, is an existing 5-story parking garage. You can see here in the axonic image, it was just being completed at the time. The applicant is proposing building the additional 7 stories on top of that existing garage. I would also note the Montefiore Medical Center, which is just to the west of the Amtrak right-of-way. The proximity is an important aspect of this project, and I'll get a bit more into the details of how that is. The applicant is proposing that the resolution be changed in accordance with that, but I would just note that marked in yellow here is one potential means of accessing Montefiore from the proposed development site, which is approximately a quarter-mile walk. Another potential means of accessing it would be this pink line, which I only note because there are some commercial uses, including a shop and stop on the corner of Marconi and Waters Place here as well. I would also point out on the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, to provide a bit of scale, the residence facilities that are part of that campus, which are as high as 28 stories in this case, as well as some taller stories as part of the Hutchinson Metro Center, including 4 proposed office towers that would each be 13 stories as part of the 1.5 million square foot development that's been proposed. This is a site plan for the site. On the lower portion, so north would be to the right here. The lower portion is the Metro Atrium project with the Marriott Hotel, the LA Fitness Club, and the other commercial uses, as well as the office space. On the north portion of the lot is an existing 3-story parking garage. And then at the rear of the lot, near the Metro North lines, and then an access road here, which is also known as Bassett Avenue, not to be confused with Bassett Avenue across the railroad right-of-way. This is the proposed existing parking garage known as Building G. It currently holds about 479 parking spaces. Again, those spaces would be maintained, most of those spaces, as part of the project. And I should note as well, and I apologize for going back, there's an important demand question here, which would be that Montefiore Hospital currently maintains approximately 100 units of staff housing. They project that they need approximately 350 units a year to meet demand. So again, the applicant is proposing 182 units as part of this development. Montefiore currently has approximately 1,400 intern doctors and residents, as well as subspecialty medical and surgical fellows. That would be the target of the proposed housing. This is a section view of the proposed housing on top of the existing parking garage. So here we have our 5 stories plus 1 subterranean story of existing parking, and then the 7 stories of additional parking. The 182 units would be divided between 105 units that would be 1-bedroom units, and the remaining 77 units would be studio units. And then just to the right, we can see for scale the existing Marriott Hotel as part of the Metro Atrium project. A bit of context in the area, working from the upper left-hand corner clockwise. This is a view looking down Bassett Avenue, the access road, towards the north. On the other side of the Metro North rail lines, which we can see here, we can see the 28-story towers that are the residences currently on the eastern portion of the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. The second image on the upper right-hand corner here is a view looking south into the development. This is the existing 8-story Marriott Hotel on top of the 3 stories of Class A office space that currently exists there, as well as the commercial uses. On the lower right-hand corner, this is a view looking south down that same access road, Bassett Avenue, towards Calvary Hospital. This again, if you remember the path marked out in yellow, this would be the one shorter means of accessing the site from Montefiore. And then finally, on the lower left-hand corner is the existing 5-story parking garage on which the applicant proposes building the 182 units of nonprofit hospital staff housing. So I'll just walk through each of the actions with a little bit more detail related to the changes here. The first action requested is a zoning map change to remap the project area from current zoning of M11 to a C42, C42A, and an R5 district. I would note that the C42 has an R6 equivalent and the C42A has an R6A contextual equivalent. The C42A allows for both an FAR of 3.0 for commercial and residential use. The C42 allows for a 3.4 FAR commercial and up to a 2.43 residential use. Both of those top out at 70 feet height limit. And just to give a bit of, as well, the land use context, again, there are a number of large institutional uses in this area, as well as some industrial and then pockets of residential, R6, R5, even a small pocket of R7 in the surrounding area. The zoning changes requested are on the proposed development site itself, a C42 district, which would allow for the 7 stories of additional building on top of the existing parking garage, resulting in a total of 12 stories at 142 feet tall. And then to the south is a proposed C42A district. The rationale in this case was to bring the zoning on this lot into alignment with the character of both what's currently on there, including some of the commercial and medical facility uses on that site, as well as to ensure that at the corner of Waters and Eastchester, that there's a more contextual nature to that development that promotes continuous retail frontage and disallows some of the uses that were seen as perhaps disruptive to that. And then I would also note significantly, this is a rather small portion of this application, but an important point. In the pink here is a small portion that is proposed to be rezoned to R5. The purpose here is that after the mapping of Marconi Street, a small section of R5 was left to the east of Marconi. And if we are to rezone these, it would create a sliver, essentially, of zoning M11 between the C42, C42A, and the R5. So the applicant has proposed to rezone that to R5 to bring it into line with the zoning on the remainder of those lots there. The second action requested by the applicant is a zoning text amendment to map the area to be zoned as C42 and C42A as mandatory inclusionary housing areas. The applicant has chosen options 1 and 2. Just a reminder, option 1 requires that 25% of residential floor area be provided at 60% of the AMI, with at least a minimum of 10% provided at 40% of AMI, and option 2 requires that 30% be provided at 80% of AMI. Significantly for this project, I would note that as a community facility use, the 182 units of nonprofit hospital staff housing would not be subject to the provisions of MIH, but any residential use built on the site in the future would itself be subject to that provision. The second and more nuanced portion of the text amendment relates to zoning resolution section 74.7, which is the section which relates to permits for nonprofit hospital staff dwellings, and it seeks to modify the conditions, which I will step through on this next slide. Currently, as the zoning resolution is worded, in order to allow hospital staff dwellings, they must be within, or the zoning lot on which they sit, so in this case outlined in yellow is the zoning lot. Every portion of the zoning lot on which they sit must be within 1,500 feet of the hospital that will be owning them. But as you can see, due to the very large size of this zoning lot, despite the staff dwellings themselves being well within 1,500 feet of Montefiore Medical Center, a very large portion of the zoning lot itself is outside. And so this is a text amendment that seeks to facilitate in this unique case, and it would be restricted to C42 districts without a letter suffix in Community District 11 in the Bronx, of which this is the only such district, or would be the only such district. So, and then the final action requested by the applicant is the special permit for nonprofit hospital staff dwellings. There are 2 conditions. The first condition is the condition that would be amended by the previous action, which allows for the dwellings themselves, rather than every portion of the zoning lot, to be within 1,500 feet of the nonprofit or voluntary hospital they serve. The second condition is that the nonprofit hospital staff dwellings are owned by a nonprofit or voluntary hospital. In this case, the owner would be Montefiore Hospital. There are 2 findings that need to be met in order to grant this permit. The first of them relates to the impairment of the essential character of future use or development of the surrounding area due to bulk or increased population density. The applicant believes that given the surrounding context, including the 28-story towers on the opposite side of the Amtrak rail right-of-way, the proposed 4 towers that would be 13 stories tall as part of the Metro Center development, feels that this is an appropriate development at 12 stories for the area. The second finding relates to off-street accessory parking spaces, ensuring there's no undue congestion. The applicant notes that in the existing parking garage, 127 spaces would be provided and reserved for the nonprofit hospital staff dwelling units, with any additional on-use spaces being available to those units as well. The applicant would further note in this case that given the proximity of the nonprofit hospital staff dwellings to Montefiore Medical Center across the street, that it is reasonable to assume that many of the staff will simply walk to and from those sites. And with that, I'll conclude with a final rendering of the proposed 7-story addition to the existing 5-story parking garage with a view looking towards the southwest.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. You had a complicated one for your first outing. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Levin.
Yes, thank you, Michael. That was a nicely crisp presentation of a complicated situation. I'm just kind of curious about what's driving the increased demand for hospital-provided housing. You cited the large number of residents who work at the hospital and need housing. Is this a reflection of changing market forces, and it used to be people could find affordable housing, affordable to interns housing in the immediate area, and that's no longer the case? What's driving this?
I'll be honest in telling you I don't know exactly what's driving it in the larger context, but I don't know if Carol or Sean have. Yeah, the applicant could clarify.
Okay.
But.
Yeah, because it does seem honestly like kind of an ungainly approach to solving a problem, and normally I would worry about putting residential use on a site like this. They're going to be the only resident. I mean, it's not residential in a zoning sense, but it's because it's not-for-profit housing. But it's residential. People are going to be living there, and they're the only ones marooned over there, and they've got to walk across a railroad track to get to work. But the fact that they're all working at the hospital sort of means that they're not just ordinary residents, and maybe it begins to all make sense. But planning-wise, it looks a little weird.
I will communicate that to you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Maybe you better not.
Yes, Commissioner Delos.
The question I had was just what's the current utilization of the parking garage? Do we know that? Or is that something that could just be shared with us when it comes back? Because part of what you explained in terms of if there's greater demand, they would make it available basically within the garage. It would be helpful to know what the current demand in the garage is in order to know if there's really room for that and ensure that it wouldn't have undue congestion on streets issues.
I can convey that question to the applicant. I'd also note that on the project development site itself, there are some 1,014 parking spaces, which is in excess of the requirement by some 100 parking spaces. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Then the application is certified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's now go to page 60, the Ebenezer Plaza proposal, which involves zoning map and zoning text amendments to facilitate mixed-use development, including affordable housing. It's a Brooklyn pre-hearing item, and our presenter is Anthony Grande from the Brooklyn office.
Good afternoon. This private application is by Brownsville Linden Plaza, LLC, for a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to facilitate the development of two 100% affordable 11-story mixed-use buildings containing 531 residential units, all affordable, including ground floor retail space as well as ground floor community facility space for the Church of God of East Flatbush. The location of this project is in the Brownsville neighborhood, Community District 16 in Brooklyn. This project is a joint effort between Proceda Companies, Brissa Builders, as well as the Church of God of East Flatbush. The surrounding area is characterized by primarily an R6 zoning, as well as commercial overlays, C13 and C23 commercial overlays in the surrounding area. Particularly, I would note C23 commercial overlays along New Lots Avenue, north of the project area. The existing zoning within the project area is an M11 district. This is a district that extends west from the north-south rail corridor here and covers these three tax blocks. The predominant land use in the surrounding area is residential. The densities range from two-story, single-family residential uses to six-story multifamily apartment buildings. Directly south of the project area, located here, is the Brownsville Recreation Center, which is a 3-acre mapped park. The area is well served by public transit. The MTA L line stops right here, just northeast of the project area on New Lots Avenue. The project area consists of 3 full tax blocks. As I mentioned, the existing zoning within those blocks is M11. The easternmost block and the central block of the 3 are the development site, and the uses that we see in those 2 blocks are auto repair and auto sales uses, and primarily one-story industrial type structures, as well as open space for car storage as well. The westernmost block within the project area is non-applicant owned, and the uses that we see there are a one-story building used by an iron fabricator, as well as on the westernmost end, 3 mixed-use buildings with residential and ground floor retail. The development site at the time of application, these 2 blocks together, being the development site, contain 35 employees in total. The project area, as in all 3 blocks, at the time of application, contained 54 employees per the applicant. The proposed developments would contain approximately 407,000 square feet of residential floor area, approximately 27,000 square feet of commercial floor area, and approximately 34,000 square feet of community facility space. The community facility space would be the new house of worship for the Church of God of East Flatbush. The total number of units is 531, which would be 100% affordable. As we can see, this would be 2 separate buildings, 1 on each tax block. Both buildings would rise to 11 stories on Hegeman Avenue, which is the southern portion of the development site. Both buildings would rise to, actually the easternmost building would rise to 9 stories on the northern end, and the western building would rise to 7 stories on the northern end. The building on the easternmost block, closest in this image, would contain 315 dwelling units. They would be affordable at or below 60% AMI pursuant to HPD's ELA program. The other building on the middle block would contain 216 dwelling units, which would be affordable at or below 80% AMI pursuant to HPD's mix and match program. No parking would be provided, as all of these units would be affordable, and this project is within the transit zone. 2 actions are being requested by the applicant. Zoning map amendment to amend the M11 district to both an R7A and an R7D. The R7A district would cover the non-applicant controlled site, as well as the northern portions of the development site. The R7D district would cover the southern portions of the development site. And the entire project area would also map a C24 commercial overlay. The zoning text amendment would amend Appendix F to create a mandatory inclusionary housing area within the project area, which would map options 1 and 2. The applicant has stated the intent to utilize option 1, but would map options 1 and 2, providing flexibility on the non-applicant controlled site. This application was certified on March 20th. It went through the public review process. The Community Board 16 held a public hearing and a vote on April 25th. They voted to approve with no conditions. The vote was 22 in favor, 0 opposed, 4 abstaining. The borough president issued a recommendation on June 2nd for approval with conditions. I provided the recommendation. It came in Friday at 6 p.m., and so you have it. I've taken a look at it and added the information to the slides here. So there are a number of recommendations, and they're sort of looking at HPD and recommending certain things be included in the regulatory agreement, as this would be an HPD finance project. So some of those, just looking at the list, providing as close to 50% as possible of 2 and 3 bedroom units, family units. Also extending local preference to Community District 5 as well as 16, as this project is sort of on the border between the two districts. And aiming to secure a fresh supermarket within the retail space, also within the active ground floor spaces, looking for a commitment to the arts and community groups. There's also a recommendation that the applicant work with DOT and look at traffic calming measures, sidewalk extensions, integration of bioswales, as well as a recommendation looking at Brooklyn-based workforce participation. So there's kind of an extensive list in there, and the applicants will be here to discuss at the Wednesday public hearing, and will also address these borough president recommendations. Thank you.
Questions from commissioners? Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you, Anthony. I think we talked about this at certification, but could you remind me of the justification for the split site, split zoning of the site? What
Right.
portion of it being R7A and the other R7D?
Right, so the R7D is on the southern portion of the site, which I think is visible from this image. The applicant has stated that having these 11-story towers on this portion of the site would be across from a very large open space here with the Brownsville Park, Recreation Center and Park, as well as Linden Boulevard here, which is a very wide street. So that is the applicant's rationale for providing that.
And
zoning
R7A
district.
wouldn't permit that height?
Right. So the R7A limits to 9 stories, which is what we see here, 9 stories, and then this site would be actually limited to 7 stories per the proposed development.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. With the respect to the ground floor overlay, is the ground floor commercial space required, or is that an option?
So within the R7D portion, it would be required. Within R7A, it would be, all right, do you want to see this map? So on the southern, basically on the southern portion of the development site, the active ground floor uses would be required. In the R7A, it would be allowed, but not required. The applicant is proposing to provide active ground floor uses throughout the entire development.
And we've gone over this, but on the other side of New Lots Avenue, there's, even though it's mapped as a commercial, there's very little active retail use on the other side, correct?
Correct. And I thought about this more after the last meeting, and so, right, this block here, I think it's sort of visible here, kind of the rationale why we don't see commercial uses there. So this is primarily single-family home ownership on these lots. And so although, you know, the commercial district is mapped there, and there's not a lot of opportunities to provide, you know, ground floor retail with these types of scale of developments, there are some unused spaces through various parts of these, or undeveloped spaces at least.
Do we know, you know, with respect to sort of which is the more important street from the perspective of the person who's trying to traverse the area? If you could go back to the map.
Yes.
You know, new lots versus Hegeman, I mean, do we know which has higher traffic counts and offers more visibility? I mean, where does, from a land use perspective, retail make sense?
So as far as retail, if you're thinking about, I guess I would think about pedestrian traffic primarily. And, you know, New Lots Avenue, definitely, we do have this upcoming development here in the R7A with ground floor commercial uses, as well as the subway stop here. So I suppose New Lots Avenue is more transit accessible. We also see I would see a lot of traffic here with the park as well. So it's hard to answer that question.
Do we have any data or figures on traffic counts or, you know, pedestrian traffic to just really determine where this activity wants to be, not where we think it should be? I think
Right.
there's a difference there.
I don't have those numbers, but I can see what I can find and provide more information.
You're not going to find ped counts, but, you
Right.
know, I'm interested in traffic counts because you know, I continue to see this sort of again and again. I really wish we had an opportunity for, you know, the commercial retail industry to sort of come in and crit this stuff a little bit, because I feel like we see the desire to put retail in places where it doesn't make a lot of sense. And we're mapping it and we're thinking that's where it should be, and then it's gonna end up being, you know, inactive space or nonprofit space, which is fine, but it's not the point. It's not what we're trying to get at. You know, and it comes up again and again.
It strikes me that at the public hearing on Wednesday, there'll be the opportunity to pose the questions to the private applicant.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fellows.
Can you just remind me how many square feet the sanctuary space is going to be in the new development? Because it seems as though that, just reading the Borough President's recommendations in the follow-up conversation with the developers about increasing the number of 2- and 3-bedroom units, that the total number of units needed to finance the project was given, that I actually wonder if it wasn't more the square footage for the religious uses.
Yeah, so the community facility space would total 34,000 square feet, and it would be located on this development here, the easternmost building. So this is actually sort of the entrance here, and would be on this first floor portion.
Thanks. Commissioner Levin.
I have a question related to that, and it goes back to a question I asked at certification. What's the capacity of the church space? How many congregants are likely to show up for services?
So the applicant is going to be discussing that on Wednesday, and so they do have information about, you know, how traffic is going to work and how people are going to come to worship here. But I don't have the capacity. I don't know the capacity as far as the number of seats. It hasn't been provided in the application.
Okay, yeah, there are a lot of little circles on the plan, but maybe the applicant can help us understand that at the time. And then, as you know, I raised a question at certification about the environmental study, which seems to not really reflect the large number of people that we believe are coming. So I hope the applicant can help us understand maybe not what seeker requires them to study, because that's sometimes pretty technical, but in human terms, what the flow of people coming and going at the time of services is going to be, and how that traffic is going to be accommodated.
Yeah, and I do think they will be able to provide more detailed information just about, you know, how the church is going to function and some of the details that I don't have, but definitely would be useful to know for this project.
Yeah, it struck me as odd that the environmental assessment identified the number of people who would work at the church, but it didn't identify the number of people who might come to the church. So, good. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so this item will return for a public hearing on Wednesday.
Anthony, you also have the next item. We're on page 85, proposed zoning map and zoning text amendments to facilitate mixed-use development, including affordable housing. The project is 723-733 Myrtle Avenue, page 85.
Okay, this is a private application by JMS Realty Corporation for a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to facilitate the development of an 8-story mixed-use building containing 75 residential units, as well as retail and community facility space on the lower floors. The location is in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood in Community District 3 in Brooklyn. The application contains 2 actions. One is a zoning map amendment to rezone from an M11 and an M12 to an R7D C24, as well as an R6A C24. The second action is a zoning text amendment to map an MIH area within the project area. The project area is located in the northwest portion of the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood within Community District 3. The district itself is outlined in red here on the map. The existing zoning within the project area is M11 and M12. So the M11 district is a district that covers 3 tax blocks here and comes down to meet with Myrtle Avenue. The M12 district is the district that covers 4 tax blocks here and just covers the south of Myrtle Avenue. Other zoning districts in the surrounding area are primarily residential in the R6 and R7 range. Land uses in the surrounding area are really a mix. So we see residential uses within the R6 district to the northeast. We have the NYCHA Marcy houses. To the southeast, we have sort of a contextual area within this R6B that's more of a lower scale residential. Out to the northwest here, this is an area that is of a higher density residential character. And then we also have industrial uses primarily within the M12 and the M11 districts directly north and south of the project area. And those uses are mostly 1-story buildings and mostly light industrial uses, warehousing, and auto-oriented uses. There are a few larger scale buildings, particularly here and then here, within those M districts. The commercial overlays that we see are primarily existing overlays along Myrtle Avenue, both east and west of the project area. The area, I also want to point out Marcy Playground. Here is a primary open space resource. That's a DPR-owned park, which measures 3 acres. Also, the area is well served by public transit. This location here, actually this maroon circle, indicates a transit stop. So that is the G line Myrtle Willoughby entrance. And then there's also bus lines along Myrtle Avenue. There's a bus line that runs from this location to downtown Brooklyn, which is an employment center. And also there's the B44 select bus service that runs along Nostrand Avenue as well. So parts of the surrounding area were rezoned in 2012. This was part of the Bedford-Stuyvesant North rezoning, which was a city planning sponsored rezoning. In this process, Myrtle Avenue was identified as a growth corridor for increased provision of affordable housing, as well as mixed-use retail development along stretches of Myrtle Avenue. And so I wanted to indicate here, in relation to the project area outlined in red, the districts that were created through that city-sponsored rezoning, which was the R7D C24 along Myrtle Avenue, actually extends further than this to the east. And then to the west of the project area, the R7A C24 districts. Those were both created as part of that rezoning process. Other districts were created. I didn't show all of them on here for simplification, but there were contextual districts created in some of these other residential neighborhoods, as well as R6A and some other districts as well. So the project area. Oh, up. Okay. I need to be taller. So the project area consists of portions of 3 tax blocks, particularly the portions of those blocks that are fronting along Myrtle Avenue, extending to a depth of 100 feet from the street line. This project area is generally bounded by Walworth Street to the west and then Nostrand Avenue to the east. As I mentioned, the existing zoning, this project area is M11 for the 2 block fronts on the north, M12 for the block front on the south. The uses within this project area really are mixed. On this block, which contains the development site outlined in yellow, we see, an open vacant lot, which is used as a truck rental business. We also have a very small 1-story warehouse at this location, some mixed-use buildings here. On the north end of, north side of Myrtle Avenue on this block, we have mixed-use buildings here, 1 vacant site, as well as this larger building, which is a 1-story industrial use, I should say, that is used as a wholesaler. This block front here on the south side of Myrtle Avenue, I have a photo that shows it a little better, but this is 3- and 4-story buildings, all mixed-use ground floor retail and residential above. So the development site outlined in yellow is what is controlled by the applicant. It consists of 14,670 square feet of lot area. As you can see, it's a corner lot. It has 162 feet of frontage on Myrtle Avenue and 70 feet of frontage on Sanford Street. The development site currently has no improvements. As I mentioned, it's used as a parking lot for a truck rental business. The business that's located on the development site currently has 5 employees. And the applicant owns all of the tax lots within the development site. The remainder of the project area is not under the control of the applicant. However, the applicant is in the process of acquiring the property that this wholesaler sits on here. So I have a series of photos. This image is adjacent to the project site. So, sorry, I'm going to go back to the map. It's actually showing this building here. So this is sort of the existing context directly adjacent to this project area. So what we see is this mixed-use character along Myrtle Avenue here, and Nostrand being here. This photo shows the built form on the south side of Myrtle Avenue within the project area. This photo shows the portion of the northern block front of Myrtle Avenue where we see the existing wholesale use. And then this is also the same block front, but showing the sort of mixed-use buildings that are located there as well. This is a photo of the development site. We can see both frontages here, and we can see there's no developments or no improvements on the site, but it's a truck rental business. And this is further west on the development site, and also just showing these 2 remaining buildings that are within the project area as well. So the proposed development would be an 8-story mixed-use building containing approximately 54,000 square feet of residential floor area, approximately 14,000 square feet of commercial floor area on the ground floor, and approximately 14,000 square feet of community facility space on the second floor. The total FAR of the proposed building would be 5.58, which would nearly maximize the 5.6 FAR in the proposed R7D district. The total number of units would be 75. The applicant intends to use MIH option 1, which would provide 19 permanently affordable housing units at the 60% AMI level. The proposed building would have a street wall height of 90 feet and also would have a total building height of 90 feet, which would comply with the base height in the proposed R7D district, which is 95 feet with MIH compliance. 68 parking spaces would be provided in the cellar. On the site plan, we can see the first and second floors, which would be the non-residential floors, would be full lot coverage on the site. And they would also be 15-foot floor-to-floor heights. The third through eighth floors would be covering only the sort of front portion of this lot and would have would be set back by 30 feet and 40 feet from this north lot line. And the residential floors are proposed to have 10-foot floor-to-floor heights. So the actions being proposed by the applicant are a zoning map amendment, which would amend the M11 district on the north side of Myrtle Avenue to an R7D C24, and would amend the M12 district south of Myrtle Avenue to an R6A C24. The R7D district allows a max FAR of 5.6 with MIH and a height of 11 stories, total height of 11 stories, base height of 9 stories. The R6A district being proposed on the south side of Myrtle Avenue allows for a max FAR of 3.6, a maximum height of 8 stories, and a maximum base height of 6 stories. So the zoning text amendment would create an MIH area, which would be the same as the project area shown here, and it would map options 1 and 2. So this application is here for certification today, and I can answer any questions.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Delarose.
Thank you. So the applicant doesn't currently own, nor are they trying to acquire the, I think you said 3 to 4 story buildings in the R6A area?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Was the recommendation of planning staff here to include that side of the street?
Right, so including that south block front would bring those buildings into conformance and compliance. With the R6A in particular, it more matches the context of that built form.
Thanks.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
Anthony, is there a user identified yet for the community facility space?
The applicant has discussed a medical office as a proposed use for the community facility. I'm not sure any more specific than that.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
This building is proposed to be 90 feet. What's the, is there any other building with a height approximate to that? You showed another building adjacent to it, but what's the closest building with an adjacent height or approximate height like that in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think some of the images here do show some of the other buildings with their heights in the area.
Not the Marcy houses, of course.
Right.
You won't know that,
But yeah, so there are also, so this is R7A beginning here and, you know, going west. And this is all R7D. There are some new developments that are underway along this corridor here. But as far as existing buildings, I'm not sure if there is a 9-story building that I'm aware of, but we do see some of the context in this area.
What's the height of the building to the left there, with the tans? Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
We can probably see it on this map. So I think it says 5. Yeah.
60 feet or something.
So most of the buildings, the residential buildings in this, like within the 600-foot radius of this project area, the heights that we see would be 6 to 7 at the highest. But there are taller buildings, I would say, along Myrtle Avenue, but maybe not within 600 feet radius of this project area.
But what about the one that you showed the photo of?
Right,
I think
so.
it was 7 stories.
Yeah, and this building here, that is 7 stories. So that is additional context here. So it's not the same as 9, but yeah.
Other questions? Okay, the application is certified.
Commissioners, item number 6, Linden Boulevard rezoning proposal is being laid over today. And so the next 2 items involve proposed acquisition of property to facilitate continued use of daycare centers. One is in Brooklyn and one is in Queens. So we'll start with the Brooklyn item. Item number 7, page 156, and our presenter is Jonah Rogoff. All My Children Daycare Center, 11.
We're skipping the first 10 seasons.
That's good.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an application by the New York City Administration for Children's Services, ACS, and the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, for an acquisition of property at 317 Rogers Avenue, Block 1296, Lot 1, in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 9, for the continued use of approximately 12,400 square feet as a daycare center known as the All My Children Daycare Center Nursery 11. The most recent lease expired in 2015, and the applicants are requesting approval to execute a new 10-year lease. The project site is located in an R6-C1-3 zoning district at the northeastern corner of Rogers Avenue and Montgomery Street, located here. Just a quick overview of the surrounding area. It's predominantly residential with 1 and 2 family homes and multifamily buildings, as well as some mixed-use buildings with ground floor retail and residential above along Rogers Avenue, which runs north-south here. There are also many public facilities nearby, including Medgar Evers Preparatory School, middle school, and high school, 1 block to the north, PS 161, and Medgar Evers College, 1 block to the west. Dodger Playground, a 0.3-acre playground managed by the Department of Parks and Recreation, is located a block to the south. The surrounding area is well served by public transit with 2 bus lines and the 2 and 5 subway lines, which have a station at President Street and Nostrand Avenue, 3 blocks northeast of the facility. Just a quick view of the area as well, so you can see the surrounding context. And then this is Dodger Playground here. Medgar Evers is over here, and the 2 and 5 subway station is right here. The daycare center is located in a 3-story privately owned building at 317 Rogers Avenue, and occupies the entire building, comprising approximately 10,000 square feet of interior space and 2,500 square feet of rooftop play area. As shown in the photos, the center has 2 sets of doors on Rogers Avenue, located here. That's the primary entrance, and then there's another door on Montgomery Street, which is the second means of egress. Classrooms are located on floors 1 through 3, with a reception area and offices on the first floor, and additional offices, a kitchen, and utility rooms in the cellar. Here's just an overview of some of the interior space. So this is a typical classroom space. In the upper left corner, stairways, and as you can see, many of the facilities are comply with sort of daycare standards, so they have to be protected. And then some of the other facilities are administrative offices and bathroom spaces for both children and adults. Department of City Planning staff toured the facility with ACS and program staff on June 26, 2016, and then a second time more recently on May 19, 2017. And we've confirmed that the facility is in a state of good repair. The site's been occupied by a daycare center since 1974. In 1994, the facility was subject to a previous acquisition application, which was approved by the City Planning Commission for a lease period of 20 years, and then which was later modified by the City Council to ensure that there are routine inspections, and that the scope of work at that time be substantially completed within 6 months after the execution of a lease. Here's just a few more photos of the area. You see the hallway and then the rooftop play area. Currently, the All My Children Daycare and Nursery School 11 serves up to 80 toddlers and preschoolers between the ages of 2 and 4 under a license agreement, and employs 16 professional, paraprofessional, and support staff. The center is open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, providing daily meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, supervised playtime with indoor and outdoor activities, and also an educational curriculum that promotes not only physical and cognitive health, but also social and emotional development. Just to conclude, to facilitate a lease renewal for the continued use of the property as a daycare center, the applicants are requesting a public facility acquisition. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Questions? Yes, Commissioner Arfon.
What's the utilization of the 80 slots?
It's about 90%. My understanding is that it fluctuates daily, but it's approximately 90%.
It looked busy in the photos, just couldn't tell. No new people, just tricycles.
Commissioner Cirillo.
Yes, I was just wondering if the children who attend this daycare center will age as rapidly as the children who were on All My Children.
Yeah.
I just thought I would check. You know?
Yeah.
They go in at 2 and they come out at 22.
Yeah, I'll confirm that with the applicants.
With the applicant.
Yes.
Jonah, I have a question. I know.
A real one?
I know that we received the repairs that need to be made prior to the center being released again, or the lease being renewed. I'm just wondering, is there any way that, or is DCAS intending on monitoring these situations? Because we've seen these daycare centers come to us, and at the end, they're asking for a lease renewal of a building that has major repairs that need to be done to it, which, if done throughout the process and life of the lease, wouldn't be so extensive or intensive at this point when the lease renewal is happening. You mentioned that the building's in a state of good repair, but if you turn back to one of the photos, it's obvious that there's been a series of roof leaks coming, right, that picture right there, upper right, see the middle tiles? A series of roof leaks going along one plane. So is the intent to renovate the space, have a lease with DCAS, and monitor the space during the term of the lease, or are we going to wait till the end of the lease again? And this is not a question for us, of course, it's a question for DCAS. Are we going to then, wait until the end of the lease and then come back again and say, well, we need all these repairs? And again, it's rhetorical. It goes to DCAS. I'm sure they'll be here to answer that question.
Yeah, and that is an issue that we're aware of, so that's one of the reasons why we attached a copy of the scope of work. My understanding is that it's in draft form, but we'll take that back.
It's very helpful, but it doesn't help us to get to the end of the term, lease term, your desire to renew a lease, and then, okay, well, we'll renew the lease if you have all these repairs done, when, there's children in the space throughout that lease of the term, and that's the concern, is their safety. And when you show me a picture saying we're in a state of good repairs, and you show me a series of roof leaks along the tiles on the roof, that's, I'm sure it's been repaired, but at some point or the other, they were suffering from roof leaks.
I would also note, Commissioner Marin, because of concerns that had been expressed, rather than having lease renewals with open-ended terms, or as had been granted in the past for 20-year terms, we're now coming forward with proposals for 10-year terms.
Yeah, and I just like to quickly add that I'm not very familiar with the scope of work, but within it, there is quite a bit of work related to the roof, and that was an issue that did come up during the inspection, but or not our full inspection, but when we looked at the site, and that DCAS and ACS believe that the scope of work will help satisfy these issues, but they can answer that more in depth, and I can get back to you.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Yes, Commissioner Delos.
I think you said the lease expired in 2015 and that the request is for a 10-year renewal. Would it be from 2015 or would it be dated 2017, or if you know?
I think it would be that's subject to post-ULURP.
Okay,
We'll get a confirmation.
okay, thanks.
Other questions? Okay, so this item is certified.
Now let's go to All My Children Daycare 6. And Stephen Everett from the Queen's Office is our presenter.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Administration for Children's Services and the Department of Citywide Administrative are seeking the acquisition of an existing building located at 11716 Sutphin Boulevard in the South Jamaica neighborhood of Queens Community District 12 to facilitate the continued operation of a child care center. ACS and its predecessor agency, the Human Resources Administration, has operated a child care center at this location since 1973. A previous application was approved by the City Planning Commission in September of '93 with a term of up to 20 years, and the existing lease expired in April of 2015. The project area consists of Block 12022, Lot 20, with frontage on Sutphin Boulevard. It's located in an R3A and R5D C23 zoning district, established by the 2011 City Planning-sponsored South Jamaica rezoning, the purpose of which was to protect the lower density character of the surrounding neighborhoods, as well as allow for a moderate increase of residential and commercial density along main corridors, such as Sutphin Boulevard. Prior to 2011, the project area was mapped with an R32 C22 district. Land uses in the surrounding area are primarily residential and characterized by single and two-family detached homes. Sutphin Boulevard is a north-south corridor characterized primarily by a mix of residential, commercial, and community facility uses. Adjacent to the project area to the north, right here, is an automotive repairs facility, and to the south, here is a single-story warehouse, and south of that on the same block are mixed-use commercial and residential buildings with ground floor commercial. Across from the project area on the east side of Sutphin Boulevard is a preschool here and the Baisley Park branch of the Queens Public Library here. The All My Children Daycare 6 child care facility occupies the entire two-story privately owned building, including cellar and two rooftop play areas. It comprises a total of approximately 14,475 square feet, including 9,075 square feet of interior space and 5,400 square feet of rooftop play area. The building has two entrance and egresses fronting on Sutphin Boulevard. The main entrance is located here, and shown in the left of the photo here, with a secondary egress here. The building has two additional egresses that lead into a side yard with access on Sutphin Boulevard. There are 3 classrooms for 3 to 5-year-old children and 2 classrooms for 2 to 3-year-old children on the first floor. Each classroom has its own children's bathroom facility. All My Children Daycare 6 serves up to 43 preschoolers aged 3 to 5 and 20 toddlers aged 2 to 3 under a license from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. The current contracted capacity is 50 children, including 20 toddlers and 30 preschoolers. The program is currently at 96% enrollment capacity. The children may attend the facility from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and are transported to and from the facility by their parents or guardians. The center provides meal service, including breakfast, lunch, and a daily snack, supervised playtime, and education under the creative curriculum to enhance children's physical, cognitive, social, and emotional development. The center is operated by 15 professional, paraprofessional, and support staff. The first floor also includes the reception area, offices, commercial kitchen, and staff bathroom facilities, shown here. The second floor contains a staff lounge and additional office space, but is not accessed by the children of the facility. And as I mentioned before, the rooftop contains approximately 5,400 square feet of fully enclosed play space on 2 levels. See, this is the first level, and the second is shown here. The Department of City Planning staff toured the facility on October 5th, 2016, with ACS and daycare center program staff, and confirmed this facility is in a state of good repair. And again, to facilitate the continued use of this facility, the applicants request an acquisition via lease of property containing the All of My Children Daycare 6 for a term of 10 years. Thank you.
Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Arthur.
I noticed in the Sutphin entrance photos or an exit that you showed us, there was no exterior lighting. Considering the program runs till 6, it just struck me as unusual. No, it's a different, maybe it's not the Sutphin, it just says exterior facade in our photos. It looks like it, I mean, it could be, but it looks slightly different.
I see.
Is that the same one?
I will,
I don't think so. No, it's a different entrance. Or,
okay, I'll confirm.
well, except this is not showing up as dark. Did you think it is? No, it looks, well, there's no tree. Well, in any event, exterior lighting is a question.
Certainly.
Given that the program runs till 6 p.m.
Other questions?
I'll ask DCAS to respond.
Okay, a question that can be answered during the public review process or the hearing, and this application is certified.
Thank you.
Commissioners, let's now go to item number 9, page 184, proposed special permit and city map amendment to facilitate retail development over 10,000 square feet. We're on page 184, South Avenue Retail Development, and Roselle Leader, staff within the Staten Island office, is our presenter. Lead project planner.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, it's on the.
Kind of wish we had these right around. Oh, you missed the brown ones. Kind of wishing we had them right.
All right. I want to give you the presentation I want to give you. Okay. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. This presentation is for a private application proposing a new retail development located in the Mariners Harbor neighborhood in the northwest corner, a part of Staten Island in Community District 1. It requests 2 actions: a special permit to allow retail uses with more than 10,000 square feet of floor area in an M1 district, and amendments to the city map to realign the existing unsignalized Morrow Street and Forest Avenue intersection with an existing traffic signal located to the east, and also to clean up the city map by removing unbuilt streets located over mapped wetlands. The applicant's development site is outlined in red, which you can see right here. It is a 28-acre zoning lot containing 2 tax lots. The project area, you see outlined in orange, includes both the development site and other privately owned sites to the south, where the applicant proposes amendments to the city map. The site is defined by several major roads. South Avenue is a north South Street, sorry for the wavy laser, to the east of the project site. Forest Avenue is an east-west road, street, major artery from at the north side of the project site. And there's a highway interchange to the south of the project area. That is the Staten Island Expressway and the North Shore Expressway. And Goethals Road North is the westbound service road. This area of West Shore includes many public and privately owned mapped wetlands. The two categories of mapped wetlands overlap in many areas. The surrounding land uses from South Avenue, you have low-density residential development east of South Avenue. Along Forest Avenue from east, you've got the, you've got the Lowe's Hardware, Kohl's Department Store. North of the site, you have Home Depot. Then there's a city-owned parkland called Forest Grove. You have next, there's a one-story self-storage facility. And further to the west, there's the approach to the Goethals Bridge. And fronting on that approach is the city's only mobile home park, which is been there for a while. Just to the immediate north of the site between Wimple Street and Forest Avenue, there's Dwarf Street over here and Lilac Court. They are narrow mapped streets that are open from Forest to Wimple and at the development site's border. Wimple Street, which is located here, is a mapped street, but it is not open and it's not built. Buildings in the area include a community facility use, office buildings, and non-conforming detached homes. To the immediate west of the project development site, you have the movie theater complex and Graniteville Swamp Park, part of the larger Graniteville Swamp Park area south of the movie theater. And the part outlined in green over here is city-owned. Staten Island and West Shore Expressways, as I indicated before, are located to the south. For just some views along the street, on the top you have South Avenue at Amador Street. In the right image, the site is on the left, and you can see the low-density residential development across the street. On the left there is a view into the wetlands to be preserved on the development site. Below, you have Forest Avenue views, and on the left, there's a view from Dwarf Street looking west. You can see the one-story manufacturing development across the avenue. And the image on the right is looking east along Forest Avenue from Morrow Street, with the site on the right and an entrance to Home Depot across the avenue. So zooming in a little closer to the site and the project area, you see locations of the unbuilt mapped streets in yellow on the development site and to the south of the project area. I'll just point that, I'll point that out. This is Garrick, and it goes through the development site and south to Goethals Road North. You also have Amador Street which is at the southern border of the development site. You have Albany from Amador down to Goethals Road North, and there's a portion of Morrow Street that is unbuilt. These are the streets that are proposed to be demapped. This map also shows the existing wetlands on the site, and to the south of the project area, the city-owned parkland I mentioned before is located in this area, and together, these wetland areas are noted in many public reports as the Graniteville Swamp Wetland Area. The mapped but unbuilt roads shown in yellow cannot be constructed due to being located in existing wetlands. Just to give you a broad picture of the zoning in the area, you have the M1 district, okay, which goes from the rail yards down below the expressway. To the west, you have the M2-1 district, which also goes from the rail yard south beyond the expressway. And on the east side of South Avenue, the project boundary, you have the R32 district. So first, I'm going to talk about the amendment to the city map being proposed. The applicant is requesting that the city map be amended in two major areas. The development site here is outlined in red. The yellow shows the streets I indicated before that are proposed to be removed from the city map. These streets are mapped but unbuilt, and they are located in the wetlands, so they will not be constructed. The demapping of these streets will not increase any development potential due to the existing wetland restrictions. The other part of the mapping action request is in the northwest corner of the site, as the existing Morrow Street roadway to be realigned for signalized access. We'll have some views of Morrow Street to help you understand how it exists today. So on the top left is a view looking north. You see the built-out portion of Morrow Street between Forest Avenue in the distance and the movie theater curb cut in the foreground. The street is currently built out to a 50-foot width. View 24 showing built Morrow Street looking south from Forest Avenue. This is not a signalized intersection, as noted by the double yellow line road striping. However, as noted in the bottom image, just 70 feet to the east, there is an existing traffic signal serving the entrance to the Home Depot located across the street. So this gets in a little closer. The image on the left demonstrates the applicant's proposal to realign Morrow Street to intersect with the existing traffic signal. A landscape buffer will be constructed between the realigned roadbed and the adjacent movie theater parking lot. The existing curb cut to the movie theater will be maintained, and a new entrance would be provided to the proposed retail center to the east. The image on the right demonstrates how the proposed street mapping changes are requested to accomplish this. Areas in blue are locations where the existing mapped street will be widened to align with the existing intersection where the traffic light is located. The developer proposes to donate almost 9,000 square feet to the city for this proposed public street and it will be renamed North Morrow Street. Regarding the proposal, we talk first about the wetlands. In accordance with New York State DEC requirements, the applicant proposes to preserve 11 acres of mapped wetlands and adjacent areas on the south end of the development site. The blue line shows where the blue line to the southern border is the portion that is actually wetlands, DEC wetlands. The drawing shows wetlands to be preserved south of the development site and also include a landscape buffer between these wetlands and the retail development. The applicant has received DEC conditional sign-off on this proposed site plan. Upon completing their review at city planning, they expect to finalize their DEC wetland permit application. The applicant also requests the special permit to allow certain retail use groups in an M1 zoning district. 5 one-story buildings with proposed floor area of over 10,000 square feet would be allowed by the special permit. They range in floor area from Building B with 14,500 square feet to Building C over here with 89,760 square feet. There are, in addition, there are 2 as-of-right uses proposed. Over here, you have a fueling station, and right next to it, there's a drive-through ATM. There's parking for 838 spaces, 838 vehicles. These site sections are taken through the one-story proposed buildings. Regarding what I want to say about site circulation, you have the entrances shown with the red arrow. Forest, the main one is Forest Avenue via, Forest Avenue via North Morrow Street, entering the site at this point. Another Forest Avenue entrance is here. It is not proposed to be signalized, and it is for right-in and right-out vehicular turns. And then on South Avenue, you have a proposed signalized entrance. The internal circulation includes a 30-foot wide drive aisle surrounding the main parking area. Regarding pedestrian circulation, in addition to sidewalks in front of the proposed buildings, 2 pedestrian paths are proposed through the main parking lot to provide safer pedestrian access. This is one which lines with the right-in, right-out entrance, and this one is aligned with Lilac Court, and you see there's a bus stop over here, and the site will be entrance to the site from here, and pedestrians can walk from the bus stop through the site to this building or other parts. So the applicant has provided these proposed detailed images to demonstrate how the pedestrian amenities are proposed to be located within Planting Island bioswales. The bioswales are designed to meet stormwater drainage requirements on the site. The DEIS identified significant adverse impacts with respect to vehicular traffic. No other significant adverse impacts were identified. All impacts are to be fully mitigated, and these measures for mitigation include a new traffic signal and signal timing changes. In summary, the application requests 2 City Planning Commission actions for the new retail development proposal. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Besser.
Thank you. Can we get a copy of the conditional approval from DEC?
Yes.
Usually I think we see it in the packet, but I don't see it in the packet. And also, would they be able to complete it before your process is complete, or is it?
I believe what they have worked out with DEC is that upon successful completion of the ULURP application, they would go to DEC to finish off the work permit
Okay,
application.
and then also the fire department sign-offs for the site?
Yes, we have those, I don't know, we do have fire department sign.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Commissioner Cirillo.
But just as a follow-up to Commissioner Besser's question, so although conditional approval has been granted, what if, for whatever reason, they don't get approval from DEC? What does that do to this process?
If they don't get approval from DEC after the ULURP?
Yes.
Depending on why they don't get approval, I imagine we'd have to come back. They'd
So-
have to come back to,
Would it just impact potentially the site plan?
Well, at this point in time, what they're proposing is within DEC jurisdiction. At this point in time, what they're proposing is within DEC jurisdiction. So it would require some type of approval from DEC. If it substantially changes from what any approvals they've received from us, they possibly have to come back for new approvals.
Okay, so then the sort of the other side of the question is, why is DEC waiting for us? What are they waiting for that is prohibiting them from providing the letter now?
Typically, in many applications that come before, say, Planning Commission, we coordinate with DEC.
Of course.
And DEC typically gives the applicant conditional sign-off, and we're looking at the same site plan, but they typically don't approve it until after we've actually gone through our action first.
Okay.
But in this particular case, they've gotten prior approvals in 2012, and they've informed us back even in 2015 that this site plan is in substantial compliance with their prior approvals.
right. And I would just add that they worked with DEC on this proposal long before they came to city planning.
So the timing is really more about what the typical process would be?
Coordinating between
Not less about the substance than it is about the process?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Just one technical question. How can those 2 buildings be as of right if they're above 10,000 square feet and you're asking us to approve a special permit to
So-
allow retail use over 10,000 square feet?
Good question. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. The fueling station and the ATM are as of right because they're use group 16, and they are not over 10,000 square feet just to be clear. And they are separate use group 16 uses in an M1 district.
Actually, if you can identify where they are, actually, because it's not those 2
Yeah.
buildings.
It's not those
Yeah.
2 buildings.
No, you
Okay.
can
No,
see
no,
that's-
I'm sorry, the
I see, okay, because I was
the
looking at
laser
those.
was a little,
That's fine.
this is the fueling station over here,
I understand now.
and here's the ATM.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, how are you? I'm struck by the number of very large spaces here, and obviously that's the purpose of the special permit here. What kinds of uses do they envision
Okay.
here? I mean, do they have tenants in mind?
They have some. The largest building is proposed to be a Staten Island's first BJ's. And over here is a supermarket on this end. And the others are retail uses. They could, the two on the north end could be restaurants or other retail
Yeah,
uses.
likely, given what we see. Oh, so they have letters of intent.
Certainly for BJ's, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Besser.
Thank you. I'm just curious, so approximately how many temporary and permanent jobs will be created as a result of this?
I want to say,
We can get back-
I'll get back to you because I,